Hello everyone, and welcome to the first episode on our new text, Childe and Maiden Rimnild. For those who are new to the channel, the way this works is that I put up a section of the text in Middle English on screen, read through it, then translate, and provide some commentary or explanation. As this is a new text, however, I'll begin by giving it a short introduction. Childe only survives in one manuscript copy, NLS Advocates Manuscript 19.2.1, better known as the Auchinleck manuscript. Despite surviving in only one copy, Childe is a version of a more widely known story, the story of King Horn. The earliest known version of this story is the Roman de Horn, written by one Master Thomas in the Anglo-Norman dialect of Old French, sometime during the 1170s. We tend to think, however, that the story is older than that, and that it was probably originally English. The characters have English rather than French names, and the various versions of the story involve wordplay on the names that wouldn't really work in Old French. Thomas's Roman de Horn was adapted into the Middle English King Horn about a century later in the 1270s, during the reign of Edward I. It is one of, if not the, earliest Middle English romance, and it survives in 3 manuscripts. Our text, Childe, was probably written about 30 years later, around about the year 1300, give or take. Despite King Horn being the more widely read version of the story today, Childe actually seems to have had the more consistent legacy. The version of the story that we find in Childe entered the North English and/or Scottish oral traditions, and is the basis of the Ballad of Hindhorn, one of the traditional northern ballads transcribed by Francis James Childe in the 19th century. You can listen to versions of this ballad performed on YouTube. I'll include a link in the video description to Maddie Pryor's version. Childe is not a long text. It consists of 1,135 lines, considerably shorter than Lorman's 16,095 lines. These lines are also much shorter than Lorman's long lines, being closer to the octosyllabic lines typical of Old French Romance. Syllable count tends to vary, but each line usually has between 5 to 9 syllables. The poem is divided into stanzas of 12 lines, each following a rhyme scheme of AAB, AAB, CCB, DDB. As you'll see right away once we get started, the language is much easier and more straightforward than Lorman's dialect. Because of that, combined with the short line length, we'll be able to get through the text in 11 videos, each video covering roughly 100 lines. As such, I won't be giving away too many specifics of the story in advance, because we'll be getting to it in good time. The text we'll be reading from can be found on the website of the National Library of Scotland, where the Auchinleck manuscript is currently housed. Again, I'll include a link in the video description. It's worth having a look at this site. Not only can you read a transcription of the text, but you can also look at scans of the manuscript itself. Because of a small formatting quirk, when I put the text onto slides, line numbers show up having a few more zeros on the end than they should. It's not a big issue, but I thought I'd just offer a quick explanation just to avoid any confusion. Alright, let's get started reading the text.
Mi leve frende der, herken en je my hair, and ye will understand stories ye my leer, of oor elders that were, whilom in this land. I will you tell of the kinges twa, and Hatheolf was one of tho, that weld all England, from Humber north and Wald hay, that was into the one say, into his ochen hand. My dear friend, dear, listen, and you may hear, and you will understand. Stories you may learn about our elders who were once in this land. I will tell you about 2 kings. Noble Hatheolf was one of them. 2 kings who ruled all England. From the Humber north, so
in other words, in Northumbria, north of the Humber. Then he, referring to Hatheolf, ruled. So Hatheolf is the king of Northumbria. Humber, that was... We'd probably want to substitute this with something that's a bit more specific, like flowed, that flowed into the Wan Sea. It was in his own hand. Now, our editor has capitalized the W here, suggesting that Wan is part of the name of the sea, which of course is the North Sea that the Humber flows into. I'm not sure that that's actually meant to be the case. The Middle English Dictionary, in any case, glosses this instance of the word wan as the adjective meaning, as it still means in modern English when we say pale and wan, for instance, meaning dark or dim. He no hadde no childe as ye my hair, but a son that was him there. When that he was born, the king was glad and of good cheer. He sent after friendes far and near, and bad men call him Horn. Eicht knav childer he sucht, to Horn his son he hem betaucht, all were thy freely born, with him to ply and lear to read 5 year in that eche tide, with banner him beforn. He had no child, double negatives here because double negatives are not a problem, so he had no child, as you may hear, except for a son who was dear to him. When he, the son, was born, the king was glad and of good cheer. He sent after friends far and near, and bade men call him, this newborn son, Horn. He sought 8 boy children. He gave them to Horn his son. They were all nobly born. Gave them to his son Horn in order to play with him and to learn to ride. So they're all going to learn together. They're going to grow up and be brought up together. 5 years in that very time. Now, I'm not exactly 100% sure what this 5 years is referring to. What I think is actually going on is that it's referring back to line 21. So it's saying they were all nobly born 5 years in that very time. So in the time that this king, Hatheolf, has gone out to look for them, they're 5 years old. And that would seem to make sense of the next line, so with banner before him. So he's gone out looking with his banner before him to find these 8 children who will accompany his son and be educated alongside him. So Horn is 5 years old at this point. Hende, and ye may hearken wulde, the childer naam as it is told, I will you reckon richt. Hatheolf and Tebaud, Athelstan and Winwald, Garis, Wies and Wicht, we hard that was ever true, sethen first him Horn knewe, to serve with all his micht. Wichard and his brother Wickel, sethen Horn found him full fickle, lesinges on him thy licht. So noble, and this is referring to us, the reader, or the implied audience listening to the narrator. Listen, if you would hearken to me, if you would listen to me, I will account or count up, enumerate rightly or correctly for you the names of the children as it is told. Hatheolf and Tebaud, Athelstan and Winwald, Garis, who's wise and hardy, Wichard, who is ever true since Horn first knew him. He was true to serve with all his might. Wichard and his brother Wickel. Afterwards, Horn found them very deceitful, very treacherous. This is our word fickle, but it's a bit more severe than fickle as it means in modern English. These guys are traitors. They lied lies about him, so they told lies about him, as indeed we shall see. Arlaund, that all thewes couthe, both be north and be southe, in hert is noch to heede, on hunting was him most couthe, for to blow on horn with mouthe, and hundes lede beside, to harpe well and ply at chase, and all gamen that used is, and mowes in that tide. Hatheolf Arlaund betaucht, Horn and his children aucht, to learn him to reade. Arlaund, who knew all virtues or all customs, both in the north and in the south. In the hall is not to be hidden, so that's not to be hidden in the hall. This is a stock line that we will see repeated throughout the text. Herd here is the word hirad that we've seen quite a bit in Lorman, meaning household. And this line just means it can be plainly spoken, or we're not concealing it among the people here. It's plain to see to everyone, but its semantic value is not terribly high. It's more about filling out the rhyme scheme and the meter. Erlaund, who knew all customs or all virtues, in hunting, it was most known to him to how to, in order to blow a horn with mouth and to lead the dogs beside. He's an expert at these things in hunting. He also knows how to harp well, so how to play the harp well and to play at chess and all games that are used, and more things that were in that time. You can see we need to adjust the verb forms that we use when we, rework this in modern English. Hatheolf gave to Erlaund Horn and his 8 children to teach them to ride. Out of Denmark kom han her, upon England for to wear, with stout ost and unride, with iron hattes, skjeld and spere, all her pride to ship thy bear, in Cliffland be Tessaside, ship and nete to ship thy brocht, and all that thy have mocht, in herd is noch to hide. When Hatheolf it herd say, he busket both and nicht and die, again hem for to ride. Out of Denmark came a lord, in order to war upon England, with a stout and fierce or savage host, with iron hats or helmets, shields and spear, singular shield and spear, all their prey, referring to everything they took, so all their spoils, they bore to the ship in Cleveland by Teesside. Sheep and livestock they brought to the ship, and all that they could have, so everything they could get hold of. And this is the line again that we saw on the last slide, in herd is noch to hide, it is not to be hidden in the hall, so, that's plain to say. When Hatheolf heard it say, so when he heard tell of it, he prepared both night and day in order to ride against them. Within that ich forte nicht, barunsfelen mania knicht, all were thy ready boon, with helm on heaved and brinny bricht, all were thy ready to ficht, and rered gonfainon. On Allerton moor all thy met, there was their dias set, filed hem no room. Sethen to Cliffland, thy rad, there the Danish men abad, to fell the fie adoon. Within that same fortnight, many barons and many a knight, they were all ready prepared, with helm on head and bright or shining byrnie, so this is their body armour. They were all ready to fight and raised the gonfanon, or the battle standard, the banner. They all met on Allerton Moor, where their days were set, so where they'd agreed to meet, where the appointed meeting was to be held. The place or no room was lacking to them, so they're all there, and it's all good. Afterwards, they rode to Cleveland, where the Danish men abode, to fell the doomed adown. You will recognise this as a fairly similar line to one that we see all the time in Lorman, Furler the Fie, the doomed fell. In this case, our warriors are going to make the doomed fall. In a morning thy began, of all that die, thy no blan, that baleful werk to wirke. Seed as thy mad, blow and wan, that were wheat as feather on swan, switch gamen men aucht irke. When that even became, the Danish men were all slan, it began to mirke.
Whoso goeth or readeth there be, yet my men say their bones lie beside Sibyl's kirke.
In a morning they began. Of all that day, so throughout all of the day, they did not cease. They did not cease to work that baleful, that evil, that hideous, that awful, injurious work. They made sides, so sides of people, blue and dark, so black and blue, sides that were before white as the feather on a swan. Such games ought to irk men, but irke here is a bit more severe than our word irk. It means more like to horrify or repulse or disgust. When evening came about, the Danish men were all slain. It began to grow dark. Whoso goes, so walks, or rides thereby, by that place, still men may see their bones lie by St. Sybil's church. Hend Hatheolf, as EU say, dwelled there the Niechendai. The folk of him was fine. They talk anon that each pry, shape and nete, that there slain lie, and jaffit the folk again. Armour and brinny bricht he jaff to squeer and to knicht, to sergeant and to swine. Shippes he derde to lond drawe, and jaff to bondman onrawe, for Herr Hatheolf was slain. Noble Hatheolf, as I say to you, dwelt there the 9 days. The people was glad of him, so the people who lived there were glad of him. They took at once the same spoils, sheep and livestock, that lay slain there, and gave it back to the people. Armour and shining burnies, so the body armour, King Hatheolf gave to squire and to knight, to sergeant and to swain. He made or had ordered or something like that the ships to be drawn to the land, and gave to the bondmen, so the serfs, all together. This means literally in a row, but it means sort of idiomatically all together completely. He gave them for their cattle, and cattle doesn't refer to cows necessarily. It refers more to property generally, in this case probably just referring to livestock in general, for their livestock that was slain. So he gave payment to them for, or some form of compensation from the ships. Though he say that were a wicht, with helm on hevet and brinny bricht, and well couther prika stede, and though that were duchty and ficht, 60 dubbed he there to knicht, and jaf hem riche mede. Some bailis he made, and some he jaf londes brade, his giftes were nucht gnede. And sethen he dede churches make, to sing for the deade's sake, God quit him his mede. Those he saw, who were hardy or courageous, with helm on head and with shining armour, and who, so we understand as well again the who knew well how to spur a steed, and those that were doughty or courageous in the fight, 60 he dubbed there to knight, so he made 60 of them knights, and gave them rich reward. Some he made bailiffs, and some he gave broad lands. His gifts were not gnede, is a great word, means essentially stingy, so his gifts were not stingy. And afterwards he made churches to be built, in order to sing, so to have masses sung for the sake of the dead, so the people who died in the battle. May God repay him his reward, or give him his reward. And that's where we'll leave it today. As ever, thank you very much for watching. If you have any comments, questions, corrections, or suggestions, please don't hesitate to get in touch. You can do that either by way of the comment section below, or on the Facebook page that I made for the Reading Lorman's Brute series. Even though this is obviously not Lorman's Brute, we'll still use the Facebook page for this text and any other future texts that we cover, just in the interest of keeping everything together in the one place. A shout out and special thanks to Al Grant and Blue Tiger, both of whom have been sharing some really interesting insights and observations on the Tolkien video that I did a while ago on reading Tolkien's Old English Quenta. So if you haven't had a look at the comment section on that video, I highly recommend you go and do so. It's a very interesting discussion. Once again, thank you for watching, all the best, and I'll see you next time.